Welcome to Custom OGT. I'm Danny Lee. That is Gregory OGL. We're going to dive into, defending Elvis Presley today. And coming full circle with the real information on things I think most people don't know. And there's a good reason for it. One is the country music industry is a bitch. Two is Colonel Tom Parker's a bitch. So that's the two people that we should point our fingers at, because that's who's done it. And I'm going to present that to you today in a respectful way. So, man here from Tupelo, Mr. Elvis, Aaron Presley, some of these guys like Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson, Chris Christopherson. These are people that Ernest Tubb, which is on my other wall right now, but and this is going to mean a lot. A young Elvis Presley right there in the back of touching the back of the truck that Hank Williams was standing on. And there's a young man right there.
Handsome fellow.
And this comeback show right here is going to come into it. Like I said, we're going full circle today. We're going all in on this. So, there's Elvis's pelvis.
Yeah, Elvis is as famous as Elvis is. He's an enigmatic figure from a very enigmatic time in music history. So there's a lot of different stories, a lot of legends that have come to be. And when I got home from work, Danny greeted me with a great deal of information that really kind of creates a very solid through line as far as how what we know as rock and roll came to be.
And we've got a lot to present here, so we'll go ahead and get to some of it. We got little voiceovers too that are pretty neat. But we can always do those at a different time. All right, so we've got the introduction here. I put a lot of work into this, and I'm happy to do it. So bear with us, because I'm not, didn't know the best way to present it. But so the introduction is The Ghost and the Opry and the King's Last Song.
Introduction. The Ghost of the Opry and the King's Last Song. The story of Elvis Presley is a myth. And like all great myths, it can be told in 1,000 different ways. Yet, to truly understand the man who became the king of rock and roll, one must begin and end with a country song. The narrative is bookended by two poignant moments that reveal a lifelong, complicated love affair with the music of his childhood. The King's Country Heart. The first moment unfolds on a Saturday night in Nashville, October 2nd, 1954. A nervous 19-year-old from Tupelo, Mississippi has just finished his one and only performance at the Grand Ole Opry, the sacred temple of country music. The response from the country faithful was flat, a quiet rejection that left him deflated and demoralized. Later that evening, at the Ernest Tubb record shop, he poured his heart out to the country titan himself. He loved country music, he explained, but was being told that if he wanted to make money, he had to sing that other weird kind of music he was in the process of inventing. Tubb, a patriarch of the genre, listened and offered a piece of pragmatic advice that would set the course for a revolution. Well, Elvis, you just go ahead and do what they tell you. Make your money, then you can do what you want to do. Point one.
First of all, I didn't know Elvis even went to the Grand Ole Opry. I had no idea about that.
At the age of 19, too.
Yeah, that in itself was news to me. All right, so first, before I go spouting a bunch of shit about what Elvis did, I like to get a thing up your head, OGL. I like to see, I like for you to hear it out of Elvis's mouth himself.
Do you have any thoughts about the rising interest in country music?
I think it's fantastic. You see, country music was always a part of the influence on my type of music anyway. It's a combination of country music and gospel and rhythm and blues all combined is what it really was. As a child, I was influenced by all of that.
Do you consider yourself basically a country music singer then?
I would hate to say strictly country because of the fact that I liked all different types of music when I was a child. You know, of course, the Grand Ole Opry was the first thing I ever heard, probably. But I liked blues and I liked the gospel music, gospel quartets and all that.
Do you ever pull out any of those old records from the Sun label and listen to them at all?
They sound funny, boy. They got a lot of echo on them, man, I'll tell you. But that's what I mean. I think the overall sound has improved today, you know.
In other words, you are available to the public only in films.
Yeah.
For a long period of time.
Well, I think the most important thing is the inspiration that I got from a live audience. I was missing that. I didn't.
Was it rough at the International? Was it a little bit of a strain on you for not being out front of them?
It was always tough, but I enjoyed it. I enjoy it. Like I know I'm going to enjoy it here because it's live audience and it makes a world of difference.
Let me ask you one thing. What's your father up to?
He's around here somewhere. Ask him. I don't know. Daddy, what are you up to?
Skip the phone.
Mr. Presley?
Elvis, there's evidence of such.
Elvis's father, Mr. Vernon Presley.
Could you come right in and sit down?
Lord, don't sign.
So I'm sure you've all seen this interview. I think it's titled Elvis is High or something. Well, no shit, man. We all got high, man. Leave them alone. That is another thing that ties Hank to Elvis, is they were both super popular people in their time. And of course, Elvis was more popular in a time when there was more people and more coverage. So, what I want to present to you is the fact that racial divides in the music industry and Colonel Tom Parker and the country music industry, who also staffed Hank Williams and Hank Williams Jr., by the way, they kind of messed around and invented rock and roll, which is a great thing. I mean, I think, but Elvis went through a lot of torment over this bullshit. So, yeah. All right, I'm gonna play something else for you here real quick.
There was a guy, excuse me. There was a guy I said one time, he said, you never stood in that man's shoes or saw things through his eyes or stood and watched with helpless hands while the heart inside you dies. So help your brother along the way, no matter where he starts. For the same God that made you made him too, these men with broken hearts. I'd like to sing a song along the same line.
All right, so the I don't know if a lot of people know it or not, but that was Hank Williams. Elvis covered "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," which he said was the saddest song you ever heard. And he also covered
Was it Lost Highway?
There's
Yeah.
No, it wasn't Lost Highway. There you go.
1. The second moment occurs nearly 23 years later, on August 16, 1977, in the final hours of his life. At his home in Memphis, the last song Elvis Presley ever performed, sung for his own amusement at his piano, was "Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain." It was a classic country ballad, a hit for the king of country music, Roy Acuff, back in 1947.1. From the sting of rejection at country's most hallowed institution to a final, private communion with one of its classic songs, the genre was the ghost that haunted his career and the home to which he always returned. To understand Elvis is to understand the country boy who never truly left, a man who, as one analysis concludes, was ultimately from it, rather than of it. Point 1. Years, event/milestone, significance, 1945. First public performance, Old Shep. Establishes country music as his entry point into performance. 1948 to 1953. Mentorship from Mississippi Slim. Gains practical experience and learns from an established hillbilly artist. July 1954. Records Blue Moon of Kentucky. Transforms a bluegrass standard, signaling the birth of his new, hybrid sound. October 1954. Grand Ole Opry debut. A critical rejection by the country establishment that redirects his career trajectory. 1954-1955. Becomes a regular on the Louisiana Hayride, finds a more receptive audience, and connects with Colonel Tom Parker.
That is where the shit gets grimy. But, yeah, it'll tell you.
August 1955. I Forgot to Remember to Forget hits #1 on country. Achieves his first chart-topping success within the country genre.
I had no idea Elvis's first #1 hit was a country song. Or he hit the #1 on the country charts before he ever hit #1 on any other chart. And I would venture to say that a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah.
Just before leaving it behind. January 1956. Records Heartbreak Hotel in Nashville. The release that makes him a global rock and roll star, fundamentally changing popular music. 1957-1958. The Elvis Effect on Nashville. His success causes a crisis in the country industry, leading to the creation of the CMA and Nashville Sound. 1967-1968. Records Guitar Man and U.S. Mail. Returns to country-based material to reignite his career, leading to the '68 comeback special. 1970. Nashville Marathon Sessions, RCA Studio B. Last major, sustained period of great artistic work, deeply rooted in country and soul. January 1973. Performs I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry in Hawaii. A global tribute to one of his country idols, Hank Williams, showcasing the music's enduring influence.
And now look, when I looked that up, it doesn't even say that it's Hank Williams' song. I literally looked it up, and it says, Elvis quotes, his song being the saddest song he's ever heard. So
Interesting.
That's misleading in itself. I mean, it's not that I'm...
Yeah.
I mean, I am upset about any false information, especially in music like that. That's so easy to... Two of the kings of their genres, the only other king is Michael Jackson. They're the three kings, country, rock, and pop. And Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain was Roy Acuff, but Willie Nelson also sang it. And
August 1977. Final song performed, Blue Eyes Crying in the Rain. His musical journey ends where it began, with a classic country song, The Making of a Hillbilly Cat, Tupelo Roots and Memphis Dreams. Before he was the king, Elvis Presley was a hillbilly cat, and his primary cultural and musical identity was unequivocally country. His ambition was not to invent a new genre, but to earn a place alongside the stars he heard crackling through the family radio on Saturday nights. For the Presleys, like countless families in the rural South, gathering to listen to the Grand Ole Opry was a foundational cultural ritual. This weekly broadcast embedded the sounds, themes, and aspirations of country music deep into his consciousness. Point 1. This identification with country and Western culture is vividly captured in a photograph of an 11 or 12-year-old Elvis at the Mississippi-Alabama Fair and Dairy Show in his hometown of Tupelo. Dressed as a cowboy, with a black hat, Western scarf, and a prop revolver holstered on his hip, he peers at the camera with dark, hooded eyes. Point 1. This image is more than a childhood costume, it is a visual artifact of his dreams. It was at this same fair in 1945 that a 10-year-old Elvis, encouraged by his teacher, made his first public performance. The song he chose for the talent contest was Old Shep, a country tearjerker by Red Foley. His career as a performer began not with a bang, but with a counter. Ballad. Point 1. His pursuit of this dream was conscious and deliberate. In Tupelo, he sought an informal apprenticeship with a local radio star, Mississippi Slim, who performed on WELO. Elvis persuaded a friend to make the introduction and would spend weekends watching Slim's broadcasts, learning chords, and occasionally getting a chance to sing on the air himself. This was a young artist actively trying to learn the craft of a hillbilly star, with a career path aimed squarely at Nashville. Point 1. This deep attachment to country music became even more profound after the Presley family moved to Memphis in 1948. The transition from the slower, safer, tighter community of Tupelo to the bustling, prosperous city of Memphis was a significant psychological shift. Point 1. In this new, exhilarating, and intimidating urban landscape, the music of his Mississippi childhood became more than a stylistic preference. It became an emotional anchor. The country and gospel sounds represented home, a source of comfort and identity in a world that was rapidly changing around him. This explains not only why his initial dream was to be a country singer, but also why he would continually retreat to the genre during times of personal and professional uncertainty later in life. 2. The Nashville Crossroads: Rejection, Advice, and a New Path. October 2, 1954. The night of October 2, 1954, was the crucible in which Elvis Presley's future was forged. His debut on the Grand Ole Opry was meant to be an arrival, but it became a redirection, shaped by the institution's rejection and the subsequent counsel of two of country music's patriarchs. The flat response from the Opry audience was not merely a matter of taste. It was a reaction to a cultural and musical transgression. When Elvis launched into his version of Bill Monroe's Blue Moon of Kentucky, he wasn't just singing a song. He was transforming a classic bluegrass waltz into a high-octane, rhythm and blues-infused anthem. His hip-swiveling, high-energy performance was a fusion that was simply too radical, too weird, for the conservative gatekeepers of country music in 1954.1. What followed the performance, however, were two conversations that changed everything. The first, with Ernest Tubb, was the moment the dream of being a pure country artist died and the reality of being a professional entertainer was born. Tubbs' advice to make your money was not a dismissal, but a blessing from a respected elder. It gave Elvis the financial and professional permission to follow the commercial path that was opening up for him, even if it led away from the Opry's storied stage. Point 1. The second conversation provided a crucial artistic validation. Meeting Bill Monroe, the father of bluegrass, Elvis stammered an apology for, as he saw it, ruining the man's song. Monroe's response was stunning. Far from being displeased, he revealed he was so impressed that he had just recorded a new version of Blue Moon of Kentucky based on Elvis's own arrangement. Point 1.
So the artist himself wasn't upset.
Yeah.
He actually redone his own song with the way Elvis arranged it.
Yeah.
So
essentially, he covered Elvis's cover of his song, essentially, which...
Oh my God, they're about to say schism. Go Tool. Sorry.
Couple things I want to bring up. Just number one, there's ideas going around now that just rejection in and of itself is fundamentally wrong. But rejection can lead, like rejection from one thing doesn't have to be a death. It can actually be a rebirth. It can be a redirection. It can actually be very healthy. It can push you, it could be a rejection. It could basically be something letting you know, okay, maybe you're not suited for this, but look at what you can do here. And also Ernest Tubbs, like the practical advice that he gave him, he said, look, make your money. And the minute, when you have dollar signs, it's when there's value to your name, they will let you do whatever the hell you want. So he's basically saying, play the game by their rules long enough, you'll get to make up your own, which I thought that was really great practical advice.
And Ernest Tubb was right there with Hank Williams' whole career.
Yeah.
And Hank Jr. And if Hank Jr. hadn't have rejected being forced to sing his daddy's music style,
yes,
he wouldn't be one of the only two artists ever to live to have 9 albums charting at the same time.
Yeah.
A few artists have done it after their death, but nobody but Hank Jr. and Taylor Swift have done it while they're alive.
1. These two encounters reveal a fundamental schism within the country music world of the time. The institution, the Grand Ole Opry, concerned with preserving a specific tradition and brand, rejected Elvis for his boundary-pushing sound. However, a key creator, Bill Monroe, an artist concerned with musical vitality, embraced and validated his innovation. This distinction is critical. Elvis was not rejected by country music as a whole, but by its most conservative gatekeepers. The institutional path was closed, but the path of artistic innovation was wide open, endorsed by one of the genre's own masters. Monroe's artistic permission perfectly complemented Tubbs' financial permission, setting Elvis on a new and unprecedented trajectory. 3. Forging a new kingdom, from Blue Moon to Heartbreak Hotel. The rejection from the Grand Ole Opry, rather than ending his career, propelled Elvis toward a more welcoming environment where his revolutionary sound could flourish. Shut out of Nashville's main stage, he became a regular on the Louisiana Hayride, the Opry's livelier younger cousin. 1. The Hayride was more progressive, a crucial incubator for the burgeoning rockabilly sound, and it provided Elvis with the stage, audience, and industry exposure he desperately needed. It was on the Hayride circuit that he came to the attention of the infamous Colonel Tom Parker. Had Elvis been accepted into the Nashville establishment, his career might have followed a more conventional path under different management. The Opry's rejection thus created the very conditions that led to the partnership that would conquer the world. 1. By the middle of 1955, his success within the genre was undeniable. I Forgot to Remember to Forget became his first number one hit on the country charts, just as Parker was finalizing his move from Sun Records to the national label RCA. 1. This chain of events leads to a supreme irony. On January 10, 1956, Elvis Presley recorded Heartbreak Hotel, the song that would detonate the pop culture landscape and crown him the king of rock and roll. It was recorded not in Memphis or New York, but in Nashville at RCA's McGaverick Street studio. The session musicians were the Nashville A-Team, including future legends Chet Atkins and Floyd Kramer. Atkins, a pillar of the Nashville music community, was so electrified by what he was witnessing that he called his wife and told her to get to the studio immediately to watch history being made. 1.
So Heartbreak Hotel's musicians were all country singers. They're all country musicians, every one of them.
This reveals the complex, dual role Nashville played in his ascent. The city was simultaneously the site of his greatest professional rejection and the cradle of his greatest triumph. He was repudiated by the city's central institution, but enabled by its world-class infrastructure and its most talented working musicians. While the Opry's old guard was closed-minded, the city's creative class recognized his genius and helped him record the very music that would make their institution seem obsolete. Elvis used the tools of the Old Kingdom to build his new one. IV. The Nashville Reckoning. The Aftershocks of a King. The global explosion of Heartbreak Hotel was a commercial cataclysm for the country music industry. Elvis Presley did not just create a rival genre, he triggered an existential crisis in Nashville that forced it to fundamentally reinvent itself for survival. His success was, in the words of the article, a ruinous influence on traditional country music. 1. The immediate effect was a mass exodus of audience and infrastructure. As Elvis became a titan of the new rock and roll, more and more U.S. radio stations switched to the new music, chasing the youth market and the money that came with it. The consequences for Nashville were dire. By 1957, the Grand Ole Opry, often playing to a barely quarter-full house, was dropped by its national broadcaster, NBC. Established stars felt the pinch so acutely that Ernest Tubb, one of the genre's most beloved figures, considered quitting music to join his brother in the insurance business. 1. Elvis hadn't just stolen an audience, he had stolen the economic foundation of popular music. This crisis prompted a swift and coordinated response from the Nashville establishment. The first move was institutional. In 1958, the Country Music Association, CMA, was formed, in part as a strategic defense to combat the commercial threat of rock and roll and rebrand country music for a modern, mainstream audience. 1. The second move was artistic. Producer and guitarist Chet Atkins, the same man who had played on Heartbreak Hotel, spearheaded a sonic reinvention. Working with smooth-voiced artists like Jim Reeves, Atkins developed the Nashville sound. This was a deliberate pivot away from the genre's rural roots, stripping away the hillbilly signifiers of fiddle and steel guitar and adding lush, pop-oriented elements like string sections and backing vocals. The goal was to create a more polished, urban sound that could compete on mainstream radio. 1. This sequence of events reveals a profound paradox. The very man the Nashville establishment rejected became the primary catalyst for the creation of modern, pop-oriented country music. By creating a commercial vacuum and an existential threat, Elvis forced Nashville to abandon its traditionalist purity and develop a crossover sound designed for mass appeal. A direct causal link exists between the success of the rock and roll he pioneered and the birth of the Nashville sound. Without the problem of Elvis, the solution of the Nashville sound may never have been developed, and country music might have remained a niche, regional genre rather than the commercial powerhouse it became. The prodigal son, country as a creative refuge. Throughout the remainder of his career, Elvis Presley repeatedly returned to country music. This was not simple nostalgia. It was a turn toward an essential source of artistic rejuvenation, a creative refuge he sought during his most challenging periods. His career, when viewed through this lens, follows the classic archetype of the prodigal son. He left his musical home, found immense fame but lost his artistic way, and returned home for redemption. This pattern is clearest in the late 1960s. After a string of increasingly terrible films and a serious slump in his popularity, his career was stagnating in Hollywood. The creative spark was reignited by a return to his roots. His 1967 and 1968 recordings of two Jerry Reed country songs, Guitar Man and U.S. Mail, were the catalyst that seemed to kickstart something in him once more. Point 1. The raw, gritty energy of these tracks was the direct precursor to his legendary '68 comeback special, which rescued his career. This
Now that's what you guys had us react to, right? With the leather suit on and everything. That's badass. I love Jerry Reed. Jerry Reed's is a bad man. That's a great music. So you see, I'm not picking sides here at all. I don't like country music anymore. I think it's funny as hell that they rejected him, and then I'm pointing to something deeper, and that's still to come.
His return was solidified in 1970 when he went back to Nashville's RCA Studio B for an epic marathon session. Working with the cream of the Nashville session players, he recorded over 30 songs, yielding 3 full albums. This material, a powerful fusion of country and soul found in songs like Poke Salad Annie and Long Black Limousine, is described as his last sustained tilt at greatness. Point 1. It was a monumental artistic achievement rooted entirely in his return to the city and the sound that first shaped him. Even at the height of his global fame, he used his platform to pay homage to his country heroes. During his 1973 Aloha from Hawaii special, broadcast to a television audience of hundreds of millions, he paused the spectacle to perform Hank Williams' "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry," introducing it as probably the saddest song I've ever heard. Point 1. It was a deliberate, heartfelt tribute, a moment where the king of rock and roll acknowledged his debt to the kings of country. Conclusion: an American trilogy. Elvis Presley cannot be neatly categorized. He was not a failed country singer who got lucky, nor was he a pure rock and roller who abandoned his past. He was a uniquely American synthesis, a musical trilogy of the country he was born into, the blues and R&B he absorbed on the streets of Memphis, and the gospel that fueled his soul. His own self-assessment, delivered to the first person who asked who he sounded like, remains the most accurate. "I don't sound like nobody." Point 1. He was an original, a transformative force who absorbed influences and created something entirely new. He was, as the analysis suggests, from country music, but never fully of it, because his artistic vision was too expansive to be contained by a single genre. Point 1. Yet the narrative of his life and career always circles back to that first love. His journey began with a country song at a county fair, and ended with a country song in the privacy of his home. Despite the global fame, the gold records, and the title of king, the music that shaped him as a shy boy in Tupelo was the same music that comforted him as a man at the end of his life. Country music was his origin, his catalyst, and his final benediction. Works cited.
And this is the link where all that information comes from. I don't agree with everything that was said in there, but I agree with a lot of it. But there is more to come. I will have this link in the description.
So there's a couple things. Oh God, so many thoughts. I'm gonna try to keep these as concise as possible. The first thing that I wanted to bring up is, like, nowadays we have these shows like The Voice and American Idol, where you get these kids who have all kinds of talent, but like before they've even set foot on stage or before they have any experience, they're being put in front of these cameras. So when you first, Elvis Presley, as we knew him, was a finished, or at least was a evolved product by the time he stepped in front of a camera. I like because they talked about him performing at fairs and doing stuff like that. That happened under the radar, outside of the view of the mainstream audience. So by the time they saw him, he was much more of a finished and evolved product. And it's the whole idea of people seeing Elvis from the very beginning, when he was just trying to get his feet. You wonder, okay, how would people view that? I also think it's hilarious that he is the king of rock and roll, but he aspired just to be a citizen in the kingdom of country at first. No, I think that's really sweet, and I like the idea that not only
there wasn't rock and roll.
Yeah, he
there
helped
was a rock
create.
and roll.
Yeah, he was arguably played a big part of the creation of rock and roll, and also in the creation of new country. And,
yeah, he forced the country to change.
Yeah,
and
that is how.
And go ahead. Sorry.
I was gonna say that's how profound his impact was. It's almost like the entire establishment had to scramble to deal with almost like he was a virus in the industry. You know what I mean? How you think about how the body attacks a virus. They had to okay, we gotta create our own a different sound that. And I think one thing that goes across here, not all areas, ecosystems, labels, genres of music, they're not all the same. Like Elvis, he reached his commercial peak, but after that point, he became artistically uninspired, and he had to go back to the humble and the real and the grit of country music to reignite his soul. So those traditional genres, for lack of a better term, they don't always top the charts or whatever, but a lot of those chart toppers will return to the grit and reality of those sounds whenever they need to be inspired to create. But I think those things can kind of work together. I also like the idea that Elvis was in and of himself an American trilogy. There was the country sound, the rhythm and blues, all of that, and he was not entirely accepted by any of them, but the world at large welcomed him. So the more you learn about him, the more, oddly enough, the more enigmatic he becomes, and the more profound his impact is.
And that leads us to this. This is not a finality. So there's 3 more parts to the story.
Yeah.
The complicated story was hard to tell in one part.
But such a compelling one.
Yes, I mean, one of the most interesting stories I've ever heard.
Men with Broken Hearts, the enduring influence of Hank Williams on Elvis Presley. Introduction, The Hillbilly Shakespeare and the Hillbilly Cat. The story of American popular music is a story of confluence, of streams of sound and sorrow merging to form a river of revolutionary culture. At the heart of this story,
Trying to move this damn thing. Hurry up.
stand 2 monumental figures. Hiram, Hank Williams, the tormented poet of a fading rural world, the hillbilly Shakespeare, and Elvis Presley, the swivel-hipped avatar of a new generation, the hillbilly cat. This report will argue that the influence of Hank Williams on Elvis Presley transcended mere musical admiration. It was a profound kinship, rooted in a shared Southern identity, a mutual understanding of sorrow and spiritual longing, and a complex, often unacknowledged lineage of Black musical tradition that both artists, in their own ways, channeled into the American mainstream. While Williams gave voice to the raw, lonesome heart of honky-tonk, Presley became the vessel through which that world's emotions fused with. The vibrant energy of Black rhythm and blues were transmitted to a new generation, irrevocably changing the cultural landscape. This analysis will first document Elvis's direct and public acknowledgments of Williams's genius, demonstrating that these were deliberate, emotionally resonant acts of homage. It will then provide a detailed catalog of Elvis's musical tributes, both private and public, to reveal the depth of his connection to the material. Critically, the report will trace the roots of Williams's own sound back to his mentorship by the Black blues musician Rufus T. Tot Payne, establishing a hidden through line of influence. Finally, by placing this entire dynamic within the context of a racially segregated music industry, this report will offer a culminating synthesis of how these forces converged in T. he person of Elvis Presley, who, in covering Hank Williams, was not just honoring a hero but completing a cultural circle. The King's acknowledgement, Elvis Presley on Hank Williams.
So, we got a little piece down here.
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting into a really fascinating story, often overlooked, I think, the connection between Hiram Hank Williams, you know, the hillbilly Shakespeare, and Elvis Presley, the hillbilly cat. Now, you might think, okay, Elvis admired Hank, case closed. But we're digging deeper. Our sources point to this real kinship, rooted not just in sorrow, which they both obviously knew, but also in this hidden thread of Black musical tradition. That's what we want to trace for you.
Exactly. And that's where it gets really interesting, the aha moment, if you like. Because when you connect those dots, you start to see that the whole idea of a strict racial divide in music, you know, hillbilly over here, race records over there.
The labels the industry pushed so hard.
Right. That whole structure was, well, it was a lot more porous, much less rigid than they wanted everyone to believe.
Okay, so let's start with maybe the most public moment. Elvis on stage doing something very deliberate.
I mean, Hawaii.
Yeah, 1973, the Aloha from Hawaii concert. Huge deal. Broadcast everywhere, like 1 billion people watching.
Something like that, yeah. Massive audience.
And right in the middle of this huge satellite show, Elvis stops everything. He tells this global audience he's about to sing, quote, probably the saddest song I've ever heard.
Hank Williams is I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry.
Exactly. Just lead it bare for everyone.
And what's so key there, it wasn't just a tribute, you know, it feels like more. Think about how often he'd recite lines from another Hank piece, that spoken word thing from 51, Men with Broken Hearts.
Oh, right. I've heard about that.
Yeah, he'd do it live. Often just before a song, he'd say those lines. For the same God that made you, made him too, these men with broken hearts.
So what was the message there?
Well, think about the context. Elvis's whole career was built on mixing quote-unquote white country and quote-unquote black R&B. And he got so much flack for it, right? Accusations of stealing Black music, all that controversy.
She that followed him constantly.
So here he is, using Hank Williams, I mean, the symbol of traditional white Southern music, to deliver this message about shared humanity, shared sorrow. It's like he's saying, look, this empathy crosses lines. It was a really clever way to push back against his critics and sort of legitimize his own blended music.
Okay, that makes sense. Using Hank's universal appeal to validate his own boundary crossing. But let's rewind a bit. Where did Hank get that deep, bluesy sorrow in his own music? We call him quintessential hillbilly, but was that sound purely, you know, country, or was there something else mixed in there too?
Yes, this is the crucial piece, the backstory that really changes things. Our sources show that when Hank was just a kid down in Alabama, his first real musical teaching didn't come from some grand Ollie Opry star.
No, who then?
It came from a black street musician named Rufus Payne. They called him T-Tot.
T-Tot, wow.
And Hank himself, he didn't hide it. He actually said pretty plainly, all the musical training I ever had was from him.
Wow. Okay, that's a huge admission for a white country star back then. It kind of reframes his whole musical origin story.
Completely. T-Tot taught Hank chords, rhythms, but also that feel the hard time Southern blues, as Hank called it. That's what gives Hank's music that unique, kind of haunting, soulful quality. It came directly from the blues tradition via T-Tot.
So the path is actually black blues from T-Tot.
Right.
Passes through Hank Williams's lonesome country sound, and then feeds right into Elvis's rockabilly, which was already mixing blues and country. So when Elvis covered Hank, he wasn't just paying tribute to an idol. He was, in a way, recognizing a sound he already knew, an echo of the blues in his own music.
Exactly. It's like you heard something familiar in Hank's music because its roots were intertwined with the same black musical traditions that influenced him so heavily. So yeah, you could argue that Elvis covering Hank wasn't just bridging genres. It was like completing a circle. It showed how artificial those industry categories really were.
Right. It sort of undermines the whole idea of separate race and hillbilly music.
It sonically dismantled it, really. Elvis took Hank's country soul, injected it with that blues swagger, that rock and roll energy, and proved the shared DNA was always there underneath the labels.
But it wasn't always easy for him, was it? I mean, translating that raw Hank sound.
No, definitely not seamless. The sources mention Elvis actually struggled recording Your Cheatin' Heart back in '58. He wasn't entirely satisfied. It shows you it wasn't just a simple copy-paste job, capturing that specific raw authenticity for a different, maybe more polished audience. That was tough.
So the struggle was real, even with that deep connection. But still, the big picture. Hank Williams writes let's say, the poetry of Southern despair.
Beautifully put, yeah.
And Elvis comes along and sets that poetry to this driving, revolutionary beat for a whole new generation, a changing nation. By doing that, by completing that musical loop you mentioned, he showed that wall between hillbilly and race music. It's always kind of destined to crumble.
It was built on shaky foundations from the start.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, what other musical genres that we think of today as, pure or totally distinct, what hidden cross-cultural roots might they be hiding if we dig deep enough? Something for you to think about. Welcome to...
So that was a little overview or whatever. I just want to see if, just show you guys what that was. So it was basically going off of this information here.
Evidence of Elvis Presley's deep respect for Hank Williams is not relegated to rumor or interpretation. It is present in his own words and actions delivered on the world's largest stages. These tributes were not casual nods to a predecessor, but deliberate, emotionally charged statements that reveal the high esteem in which he held Williams's work. The Aloha from Hawaii Declaration. On January 14, 1973, during the Aloha from Hawaii via satellite concert, a broadcast that reached an estimated global audience in the hundreds of millions, Elvis Presley paused the spectacle to make a profound artistic statement. Before launching into a cover, he told the world, "I'd like to sing a song that's probably the saddest song I've ever heard." Point 1. The song was Hank Williams's "I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry."
So we've already covered a lot of that.
Studio recordings, polishing the pain. In a February 1958 session at Radio Recorders in Hollywood, Elvis attempted a formal studio recording of Your Cheatin' Heart .12. The session proved difficult. He struggled through numerous takes, ultimately expressing dissatisfaction with the result, which would remain unreleased until the 1965 album. Elvis for Everyone .12. This struggle is telling. It highlights the challenge of translating the raw, hillbilly authenticity of a Hank Williams original into the more polished rock and roll or pop ballad sound expected of Elvis at the height of his fame. His dissatisfaction
I want to cover this part here, though.
Give me just a second.
Men with Broken Hearts, a recitation of social conscience. Perhaps even more telling was Elvis's repeated use of Hank Williams' 1951 spoken word piece, Men with Broken Hearts. Throughout the late 1960s and early 1970s, Elvis would often preface songs on stage with a recitation of its key lines. "You've never stood in another man's shoes, or saw things through his eyes, so help your brother along the way, no matter where he starts. For the same God that made you, made him too, these men with broken hearts." Point 4. According to esteemed biographer Peter Guralnick for Elvis, this recitation was as much about social justice as empathy and understanding. Point 6. By repeatedly invoking these words, Elvis was framing his own music within a larger context of humanism and compassion. This act becomes even more significant when placed within the context of the era's social and racial tensions. Elvis's career was built on the fusion of white country and black rhythm and blues, a blend that was revolutionary but also generated controversy and persistent, ugly rumors of racism. Point 7. Elvis actively refuted these rumors, publicly citing his deep respect for black artists like Fats Domino and Arthur Crudup. Point 7. The lyrics of Men with Broken Hearts are a direct plea for universal empathy that transcends race and class. By choosing to deliver this message through the words of Hank Williams, a figurehead of white Southern music, Elvis was making a powerful and strategic statement. He was using a source revered by his white audience to deliver a message of racial and social inclusivity fundamental to his own music. It was a way of demonstrating that the message of brotherhood heard in his black-sounding music was the very same message found in the heart of country's most beloved poet, thereby legitimizing his own boundary-breaking art. Echoes in the Music, a catalog of Elvis Presley's Hank Williams performances. Elvis Presley's engagement with Hank Williams's catalog was not limited to a single genre or setting. It spanned from intimate, private moments of personal expression to grand, public spectacles, each revealing a different facet of his connection to the material. The Private Sessions, Germany, 1959, An Unfiltered Connection. While stationed with the U.S. Army in Bad Nauheim, Germany, Elvis made several informal home recordings. These tapes are invaluable artifacts, capturing his musical instincts away from the pressures of the studio and the demands of his manager, Colonel Tom Parker. Among these recordings was a raw, solitary performance of Hank Williams's I Can't Help It If I'm Still in Love with You, .10, accompanied only by his own guitar. Elvis's rendition is stripped of all polish, revealing a pure, unmediated connection to the song's heartache. His choice to sing this song during a period of significant personal upheaval, following the recent death of his mother and his removal from the spotlight, shows that Williams's music was a personal touchstone, a source of private comfort and expression. .10. This was not a performance for an audience, it was for himself. The studio recordings, Polishing the Pain. In a February 1958 session at Radio Recorders in Hollywood, Elvis attempted a formal studio recording of Your Cheatin' Heart. .12. The session proved difficult. He struggled through numerous takes, ultimately expressing dissatisfaction with the result, which would remain unreleased until the 1965 album. Elvis for Everyone. .12. This struggle is telling. It highlights the challenge of translating the raw, hillbilly authenticity of a Hank Williams original into the more polished rock and roll or pop ballad sound expected of Elvis at the height of his fame. His dissatisfaction suggests a reverence for the original that he felt his own version, constrained by commercial expectations, could not adequately capture. The public spectacle, dramatizing the melancholy. In stark contrast to his private recordings, Elvis's live performances of Williams's songs transformed their intimate despair into grand, theatrical statements. As noted, his 1973 rendition of I'm So Lonesome I Could Cry was a centerpiece of the Aloha from Hawaii Special .1. Here, Elvis took the quiet, internal pain of the original and magnified it for a global stadium audience, employing his powerful vocal range and the full force of his TCB band. He was not merely covering the song, he was reinterpreting it through the lens of his own larger-than-life persona, proving the universal and scalable power of Williams's songwriting. The following table provides a comprehensive overview of Elvis Presley's known recorded performances of Hank Williams's compositions, offering context and analysis for each. Song title: Original Hank, used as a spoken-word intro, highlighting Elvis's focus on the song's message of social justice and empathy. .4. The Unseen Bridge, Rufus T-Tot Payne, and the Blues in Hank's Soul. To fully understand Elvis's connection to Hank Williams, one must look beyond Williams himself to the source of his musical education. The pure country sound that Elvis and so many others admired was, in fact, a product of cross-racial musical mentorship, creating a powerful, hidden through line of black musical influence that connects directly to Elvis's own artistic DNA. The mentorship. As a boy in Georgiana and Greenville, Alabama, a young Hank Williams received his most significant musical training from a black street musician named Rufus Payne, known locally as T-Tot. .14. This relationship was not casual, it was foundational. Williams himself was unequivocal about Payne's impact, stating, "All the musical training I ever had was from him." .14 T-Tot, a bluesman who often performed on street corners, taught Hank more than just guitar chords and progressions. He imparted the very essence of the hard-time Southern blues, including the rhythms, bass runs, and emotional vocabulary that would define Williams's sound. .15. Beyond musical technique, Payne also mentored Williams in the art of performance, teaching the shy boy how to engage a crowd, tell jokes, and project a stage presence that could command attention, skills essential for any entertainer. .15. In return for these invaluable lessons, Hank's mother would often feed T-Tot in her kitchen. .15. The musical transmission. T-Tot's mentorship was the catalyst that allowed Williams to successfully fuse blues, hillbilly, and folk into his own unique and unforgettable style. .16. This infusion of black musical tradition, the artistic connection between Hank Williams and Elvis Presley did not exist in a vacuum. It was shaped and constrained by the historical reality of the American music industry, a system of commercial and cultural apartheid. The musical lineage Elvis, the white artist who famously sounded black, covered the music of Hank Williams, the archetypal white country star. He was not simply crossing a genre line. He was connecting with a branch of his own musical family tree. The blues sensibility he heard in Hank's music was not an alien element, but a familiar echo of the same traditions he was drawing from in the music of bluesmen like Arthur Big Boy Crudup or B.B. King .19. This reveals that the perceived racial divide between hillbilly and race music was far more porous and interconnected than the industry's rigid categorization suggested.
In the 1986 Grammys, Hank Jr. and B.B. King played side by side. I'm ready, friends are coming over tonight. We got that in one of our shorts.
The thing I want to bring up real quick is that the industry may have been segregated, but the musicians much less so. We watched that documentary on Muscle Shoals where white and black musicians routinely would get together and make musical magic together. They'd go out and eat together. We had, and even, like I remember you mentioned Hank Jr. and B.B. King. I remember, even when Run DMC and R.Schmitt performed Walk This Way together, that was a big deal. And when Anthrax and Public Enemy toured together, people thought that would just implode on it. So it's like, there's no way those audiences are going to get along, and they did. So the artists have always been, much less segregated than the industry itself.
Music Circuit .25. He was marketed as a country artist, touring on hillbilly shows with stars like Hank Snow and Webb Pierce, and his most significant early exposure came from country disc jockeys and his regular appearances on the Louisiana Hayride, a popular radio show known for being more musically adventurous than the arch-conservative Grand Ole Opry, which famously rejected him after a single performance. .25. This context is crucial for understanding his public engagement with Hank Williams' music. Embracing a hero of the country tradition was a way for Elvis to ground himself in the very market he was simultaneously upending. It was a nod of respect to the tradition he was evolving from, even as the Nashville establishment viewed him as a dangerous outsider who was very bad for country music. .27. Synthesis: the hillbilly cat and the honky-tonk hero. Elvis Presley's engagement with the music of Hank Williams was a complex, multifaceted act with profound cultural implications. It was simultaneously an act of genuine homage, strategic grounding, and revolutionary recontextualization. At its most fundamental level, Elvis's connection was deeply personal and authentic. He saw in Williams's raw, honest songwriting a reflection of the same Southern pain, poverty, and spiritual yearning that had shaped his own life. The intimate home recordings from his time in Germany and the heartfelt on-stage tributes are undeniable evidence of this sincerity that the soul of Williams's music could not only coexist with a black rhythm, but was, in fact, magnified and electrified by it. This act of recontextualization was revolutionary because it sonically dismantled the industry's segregated logic, proving that the categories were artificial and that the underlying musical DNA, rooted in the shared experience of the American South, was universal. The shared lonesome road. The connection between Hank Williams and Elvis Presley is a quintessential American story. It is a tale of two titans from the poor white South who gave voice to the hopes and heartaches of a nation. But more profoundly, it is a testament to the unseen and uncredited influence of black music on the very foundations of what came to be known as country and rock and roll. Hank Williams, mentored by a black bluesman, wrote the poetry of white Southern despair. Elvis Presley, absorbing the sounds of both Hank Williams and the black musicians of Memphis, set that poetry to a revolutionary new beat that captivated the world. In covering Hank Williams, Elvis was not just honoring a hero, he was letting a circle. He was revealing the shared, lonesome road that connected the Mississippi juke joint to the stage of the Grand Ole Opry, a road that ultimately led to the birth of a new, integrated American sound that would change everything. Works cited.
So here are all the links that I went through to get all that information. Every bit of it.
Wow.
And I'll put all of them in the description too. So that brings us to the final part of this, which is all I really set out to do, and then I found all this other information.
This is the seed from which all that sprouted.
So Heartbreak Hotel, I always felt, seemed like it was on the Lost Highway. It's me. I mean, I just, and that's all I had. That's all I was looking for, and that's all I had. The AIs break it down and do deep research on was this idea that was Heartbreak Hotel a shout back to Hank from Elvis, like a secret shout, since both sides were coming at Elvis, the country and the black musicians, that you're taking away from country and you're stealing from black. I'm like, what? Shut up. Like Waylon said, he could have said it about Elvis too. Did Hank really do it that way? I don't think he did. That was the first triple platinum country song. So this also gives many references to everyone who loved Hank and Elvis, from the Beatles to the Stones to Bob Dylan, to everyone who said those two artists are who shaped all their careers. So what I'm saying is there would be no rock and roll, period, if it wasn't for Elvis and Hank Williams. There would be no, or it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be, it didn't come from the English bands. It didn't come from them. It came from the South, the American South. Get mad if you want to. It's the truth.
But even the most influential English bands cited people like Hank Williams as an influence. So
they outed Chuck Berry, Bob Dylan, Glenn, and McCartney.
Yeah.
Bob Dylan. 5 of the top 7 greatest songwriters ever cite Hank Williams, and he's 13 in Rolling Stone magazine. And, the Rolling Stones say they got their name from Muddy Waters, but Hank Williams recorded the Lost Highway a year before that. Two of Hank Williams' songs the Rolling Stones recorded, You Win Again, was one of their first hits. And they came to Alabama to record Muscle Shoals, Wild Horses, Brown Sugar. All those songs were recorded in Alabama. They didn't go to Chicago, where Muddy Waters is from. So, I mean, the proof's in the pudding. It probably wasn't popular for them to say, hey, we named our band after a redneck in Alabama.
Right. Yeah.
Down at the end of Lonely Street, how Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel became the final destination in Hank Williams' universe of despair. Introduction: The Great Transference of American Sorrow. In the annals of American music, certain songs serve as cultural crossroads, moments where a nascent feeling is given a name and a new generation finds its voice. Elvis Presley's 1956 debut single for RCA, Heartbreak Hotel, is one such monument. Yet, its stark, cavernous despair did not emerge from a vacuum. It can be understood as a direct, narrative successor to the specific universe of sorrow meticulously crafted by Hank Williams. The undisputed Hillbilly Shakespeare .1 Heartbreak Hotel represents a critical cultural transference, where the fatalistic, rural anguish of Williams' honky-tonk was codified, given a physical location, and electrified for a new, younger, and increasingly urban post-war audience. Hank Williams was an artist whose profound personal pain became the raw material for a universal language of suffering. His songs charted a landscape of spiritual desolation that was both deeply personal and archetypally American. Into this landscape stepped Elvis Presley, a brilliant synthesizer who absorbed the deepest currents of the nation's music: gospel, blues, and, crucially, the profound melancholy of country artists like Williams .2. The foundational link between these two pillars of 20th century music was articulated perfectly by Bob Dylan, who stated, "If it wasn't for Elvis and Hank Williams, I couldn't be doing what I do today." Point 4. This report will first provide a detailed cartograph, Lee of Williams's world, through 3 key songs, establishing its geography, population, and atmosphere. It will then conduct a forensic analysis of Heartbreak Hotel, demonstrating how it functions as the architectural realization and thematic terminus of that very world. Part 1. The Geography of Grief, charting the world of Hank Williams. To understand the destination, one must first understand the journey. The world of Hank Williams is not merely a collection of sad songs. It is a cohesive universe with its own...
I don't think we need her for this. We
I
can
think we
listen
need to what?
to. I don't think we need her for that. For this.
Okay.
We can listen to this, And I can show you the lyrics. I mean, it's simple from here. We've heard all that's going to say in this. I can tell you that you can look up John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Chuck Berry wrote a song, tribute to Hank Williams, and of course Bob Dylan and Johnny Cash and many others. They all loved Elvis and Hank Williams. Both of them did. In fact, many of you have pointed out to me, John Lennon or one of them said there was nothing before Elvis. Well, that can't quite be true because he also admired and mentions and cites Hank Williams as one of his greatest influences. So, yeah, so it had to be both. I mean, there's so many people who loved both of these men that it's almost impossible to separate the two. But they've tried to do it.
Okay, let's dive in. We're looking at something pretty specific today, this cultural handover. How Elvis Presley's Heartbreak Hotel, his big 56 debut single, how it basically acts as the final stop for this whole universe of sorrow that Hank Williams had already mapped out.
Exactly. It's more than just influence, isn't it? It feels like this necessary exchange of American despair almost.
Yeah, yeah. And Bob Dylan saw it too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Dylan basically cemented it. He said, if it wasn't for Elvis and Hank Williams, I couldn't be doing what I do today.
Right.
But the thing about Williams, the hillbilly Shakespeare, he wasn't just writing sad tunes. It's like he built this entire world, like a whole place.
A world, you mean with like geography and people?
Totally. Its own geography, its own population, even its own atmosphere. A really cohesive universe of grief, if you think about it.
Okay, that's intense. So if we're charting this tragic geography, where's the starting point? Lost Highway.
That's got to be it. The main artery. And it's not just, a song about a road trip gone wrong. It's this huge metaphor.
For a life just gone off the rails, irrevocably lost.
Yeah, lost to regret. He literally calls the guy a rolling stone, all alone and lost.
All rolling stone.
And there's no turning back. That journey is like permanent.
Yeah.
It's fueled by a deck of cards and a jug of wine. Standard vices, maybe? But the consequence is absolute. Williams tells you straight up, now I'm lost, too late to pray.
Wow. Too late to pray. That's heavy. So who else is on this highway? Who lives there?
Well, you meet them in Men with Broken Hearts. These aren't just isolated sad sacks. They're like a visible group, united by this really obvious suffering.
How so?
He describes them shoulders stooped and heads bowed low. You see the pain on them. But here's what gets me Williams' empathy. Even surrounded by all this misery, he tells you, the listener, you have no right to be the judge.
Right. Don't criticize.
Yeah. To criticize and condemn. He's saying, look, these people are in constant pain, but they still deserve compassion. That's pretty radical.
It really is. Okay, so we have the road, the people. What's the air like in this world, the atmosphere you mentioned?
That would be, I'm so lonesome I could cry. And the loneliness there, it's not just personal sadness. It's like cosmic.
Cosmic. How?
It actually infects nature itself in the song. The whippoorwill is too blue to fly. The moon hides its face to cry. It's huge abstract sorrow.
Even Elvis picked up on that one, didn't he?
He did. He covered it and famously called it probably the saddest song I ever heard. High praise coming from him.
Okay, so you've got this vast abstract sadness floating around.
Right.
It needs somewhere to land, right?
Precisely. And that's where Presley comes in. Heartbreak Hotel is basically the building. It's the architectural manifestation of all that Williams sorrow. And
wasn't it based on a real thing? Like a note?
Yeah, famously inspired by a suicide note somebody found. The guy wrote about walking down a lonely street. So the songwriters, Tommy Durden and Mayborn Axton, they literally put the hotel at the end of that lonely street. It was conceived as a terminus.
All right, the end of the line. And that's the big shift, isn't it? Williams is all about movement, the rolling stone on the highway.
Constant motion, yeah. Endless wandering.
But Elvis, he's stopped. He's checked in. I found a new place to dwell. The journey's over. No more rolling.
It's total stasis. You're not going anywhere now. You're in the hotel.
But is that Williams-style empathy still
like
there?
The drifter, constant motion.
For the residents?
It kind of transforms, I think. The residents are broken-hearted lovers, so yeah, echoes of Williams' men. But the vibe is different. It's that very modern thing, crowded solitude.
Although it's always crowded, you still can find some room.
Exactly, surrounded by heartbroken people, but you're still completely alone in your own misery. And the staff there, the bellhop crying, the...
I played this because I thought they did a really good job on this one about the AI conversation.
The text was really good.
In black.
They're part of the scenery.
They're prisoners too. They ain't ever gonna look back. Grief is just the permanent condition there. It's normalized.
Okay. This is where it gets really interesting for me. The climax. Williams's ultimate expression is poetic, right? I could cry. It's release.
It's release, yeah. It's feeling. It's human.
But Presley, he takes that exact feeling, that loneliness, and ramps it up. It's not, I could cry. It's,
I get so lonely I could die.
Die. It becomes existential.
That's the whole cultural translation right there. Elvis, the master translator, takes this authentic, rural, adult despair from Williams.
Real lived pain.
And recasts it. Makes it dramatic, immediate, rock and roll angst. Perfect for teenagers in the 50s starting to, explore those big feelings.
So it becomes safer. More romanticized.
Maybe commodified even. Authentic suffering becomes this kind of gothic rock and roll tragedy. It's powerful, but different.
So wrapping this up, then, what's the big takeaway for you listening? The hotel. It's literally built on the foundation Williams laid.
It's the physical address for his abstract sorrow. Presley didn't invent the feeling, but he gave it a home. He solidified the myth, building rock and roll tragedy right on top of country's deepest heartaches.
So the ghost of the hillbilly Shakespeare is just living in the mansion of the king of rock and roll.
Huh. Pretty much. Permanent resident. Which leaves you with this thought, maybe. Does that whole transformation, from raw specific suffering to this more romantic, maybe consumable angst, does that tell us something bigger about post-war America? About how we started to, package our sadness?
Okay, let's dive in. We're looking...
Yeah, so, they're so much alike, man. So many key details that are just hard to ignore. The lyrics themselves are just...
Yeah, there are so many obvious connecting points in the lyrics.
I think that's what this is talking about.
Internal logic, geography, conceived it during a moment of desperation while hitchhiking from California to Texas 7. Williams' 1949 recording, Kings and Score. It is a one-way road. A one road became a powerful symbol sphere of cosmic loneliness. The road to ruin. The irreversible journey of Lost Highway. The primary artery into the world of Williams' despair is the Lost Highway. Though written by the blind singer-songwriter Leon Payne, who conceived it during a moment of desperation while hitchhiking from California to Texas 7, Williams' 1949 recording transformed it into an autobiographical anthem that perfectly encapsulated his own public struggles with sin and sorrow. 8. The song's lyrics establish the highway not as a path of liberation, but as a metaphor for a life irrevocably lost to regret. The opening line, "I'm a rolling stone, all alone and lost," immediately establishes the protagonist as an aimless wanderer, stripped of identity and community. 10. This image of rootlessness, later a touchstone for artists like Bob Dylan. 8, taps into a specific post-war American anxiety. As the nation's highway system expanded, the open road became a powerful symbol of freedom and opportunity. Lost Highway subverts this optimistic narrative, presenting a stark countervision where mobility leads not to salvation, but to spiritual entrapment. The journey is a result of moral failure, a deck of cards and a jug of wine, and a woman's lies make a life like mine, and its consequences are absolute. E.12. The song's theological core is found in its declaration of irreversible doom, and now I'm lost, too late to pray. 11. This is not a temporary detour. It is a one-way road away from grace. The Lost Highway is the narrative starting point, the path one must travel to arrive at the state of being that defines this desolate landscape. The population of pain, the inhabitants of Men with Broken Hearts. If Lost Highway charts the journey, Men with Broken Hearts serves as a field guide to those who have completed it. The song describes the anonymous figures who populate this world of sorrow, a legion of the damned defined by a shared posture of defeat. You'll meet many just like me upon life's busy street, Williams sings, with shoulders stooped and heads bowed low and eyes that stare in defeat. 13. They are a collective, their individuality erased by a common suffering. This suffering is a great equalizer, rendering past status meaningless. Some were paupers, some were kings, and some were masters of the arts. But in their shame, they're all the same. These men with broken hearts, .13 Williams describes them as the living dead, souls for whom a living death is all that's left, who pray for death because they know pain with every breath of the cosmic sorrow from "I'm so lonesome I could cry," escalating the potential outcome from tears to death. In this process, Elvis Presley acted as a crucial cultural translator. He took the specific, rural, and often religiously inflected despair of Hank Williams and stripped it of its overt context, transforming it into a universal myth of loneliness, heartbreak, and existential dread. He gave this sorrow a new sound, a new physicality, and a new address that resonated with a global youth audience. Heartbreak Hotel did more than launch Presley's career. It built a foundational myth for rock and roll upon the bedrock of country music's deepest sorrows. It ensured that the ghost of the hillbilly Shakespeare would forever be a resident in the mansion of the King of Rock and Roll, a permanent guest in the very hotel he helped to spiritually design. The profound influence of Williams' universe on a pantheon of artists, from Presley and Johnny Cash to Bob Dylan and the Rolling Stones, stands as final proof of the lasting power of the world he created. 3. Works cited behind the song lyrics, "I'm so lonesome I could cry," Hank Williams, accessed September 27, 2024.
Hip-hop. Are we recording?
Yes.
All right, so Heartbreak Hotel. Since my baby left me, I found a new place to dwell. Down at the end of the lonely street at the Heartbreak Hotel. When I get so lonely I could die. So, I mean, there's basically the reference to the Lost Highway, and there's no denying I'm so lonesome I could die. I'm so lonely I could die, and I'm so lonesome I could cry. Those are direct references to each other. And in Elvis's day, there was a lot more people. I mean, and a lot more attention. So it's crowded, but you can still find some room. And those broken-hearted lovers cry in their gloom. And Men with Broken Hearts has those almost exact lyrics in it. The bellhop's tears keep flowing, and the desk clerk's dressed in black. That could very well be Johnny Cash. They toured together. Him and Johnny Cash were pretty good friends. The hell? They've been so long on the lonely street, they're never coming back. That could be Hank. And then, yeah.
They mentioned I get so lonesome I could die instead of cry. Yeah, the links there are obvious. I think it was, like they mentioned, it was based on an alleged, like a newspaper article.
No, it was. It wasn't
Yeah.
alleged.
Okay. Basically about a lonely man who jumped to his death from a hotel window, leaving a note which read, "I walk a lonely street." So
Well, that's the ironic part. That neither one of them wrote their songs.
Yeah.
Hank didn't write Lost Highway, and Elvis didn't write.
But one of the songwriters, May Boren Axton, actually suggested, let's put a Heartbreak Hotel at the end of this lonely street. So,
Right.
But I do like that as being sort of like a stop on the Lonesome Highway or the Lost Highway.
So here are the lyrics to Men with Broken Hearts. You'll meet many just like me on life's busy street, with shoulders stooped and heads bowed low and eyes that stare in defeat. Our souls that live within the past, where sorrow plays all parts, where a living death is all that's left for the men with broken hearts. You have no right to judge, to criticize, or condemn. Just think, but for the grace of God, it would be you instead of him. One careless step or one thoughtless deed, and then the misery starts. And for those who weep, death comes cheap. These men with broken hearts. Oh, so humble you should be when they come passing by. For it is written, with the greatest men, never get too big to cry. Some lose faith in life and love, and sorrow shoots her darts. With hope all gone, they walk alone, these men with broken hearts. You never walked in that man's shoes or saw things through his eyes, or stood and watched with helpless hands while the heart inside you dies. Some were paupers, some were kings, and some were masters of their arts. But in their shame, they're all the same, these men with broken hearts. Life sometimes can be so cruel that a heart will pray for death. God, why must these living dead know pain with every breath? So help your brother along the road, no matter where he starts. For the God that made you made them too, these men with broken hearts. That is, hell, I can see where that had to resonate with Elvis Presley. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
That,
so, Elvis had it rough, man. He caught it from both ends. So, yeah, I think it's terrible.
this song was released in 1951, and I think those lyrics still hit every bit as hard as they did, 7 decades and some change ago.
And Heartbreak Hotel was what? Oh, that was 41? Did you say 41?
51. Man with Broken Hearts was 51.
Yeah, okay. And Elvis was 55 when he released Heartbreak Hotel. So, yeah, I mean, they're so close together and everything. It's just...
Yeah.
And, Elvis's suits, they're not nudie suits, but they're flashy suits with, say, I think Hank and Elvis were the first two to wear suits like that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Anyway, this gave me a lot of new respect for Elvis. It did.
This is there's so much of this that I wasn't aware of, and that sucks because it's such an amazing story.
And they're not even telling you about, the Eddie Rabbit and Ronnie Millsap being on Kentucky Rain. I mean, there's way more. Dolly Parton and Elvis had it out over some that Dolly song. I forgot which song it was. I keep thinking Whitney Houston song, but oh man,
I Will Always Love You.
Yes, there you go.
Or
yeah,
Always on My Mind.
I think that was Willie's song.
Yeah, Always on My Mind was Willie. Yeah.
Dolly had a song too that was sung. That shit, some of that shit wanted to record it or something, but I can't remember which one it was. I've been researching this since 2 o'clock this morning. It's 12:29.
Wow. I was looking through Wikipedia here about songs that have paid tribute to Hank Williams, and what struck me is just how, like, we talk about how influential he is in the country and rock circles, but his influence literally is everywhere in music. It's in jazz, it's in Broadway, it's everywhere, and
he's in 7 different cultural Hall of Fames.
I want to reiterate that this man's recording career was 3 years long. That is mind-boggling. So, if anything, it was almost like maybe Elvis sort of took that Hank Williams spirit and took it where Hank, couldn't anymore. There's just, but like you said, you can't deny the link between the two.
No, and a lot of people don't know about it. I mean, that's really the only reason I just seen Heartbreak Hotel as being, a direct shout out to Hank.
Yeah.
Can you see this good? No, you can't. It ain't on the screen. Someone to.
The Lord is my shepherd.
Look at that.
Wow.
That's Hank died on New Year's Day, 1953, and he was in Virginia. Now, 1953, there wasn't much communication. It wasn't easy to get around.
No. That's
And
that's
that was the third. So it wasn't 2 days till Hank had his funeral, which I don't know how they done it that fast, but look at the thousands and thousands and thousands of people there.
Yeah. Just packed
to see Hank buried. So what I'm trying to say is Hank and Elvis and Michael Jackson, they are the three biggest.
The three kings. Yeah.
The three kings. They just are. I mean, there's just no denying that. Well, that was the fourth. Okay, 1/4/53. There's Junior. No, that wasn't him. That's too big to be him. And that's where he's buried. So yeah, I mean, it's I don't know. I'm not spent, man. I ain't got no final words.
Yeah. It's just we encourage you guys to look this stuff up. Just fill in the blanks for yourself, but just it does make you think. You know, how many other stories are there like this that we're not aware of? This reminds me of, like, I don't understand why Hank Williams Jr. falling off the mountain isn't more widely known, because I had no idea about that. That, to me, the fact that he was able to come back and have the career that he did after that is mind-boggling. This link between Hank Williams and Elvis, and just the cultural chaos that Elvis caused within the music industry in particular.
Hank Jr. has signed with everybody from Ray Charles to Fats Domino to B.B. King to Van Halen to Tom Petty. I mean, just the names can go on and on and on and on and on.
Yeah.
He did Monday Night Football for years and years and years and years.
Yeah.
He's played at either opening or playing that Monday Night Football game at 3 halftime shows. So 9 Super Bowls. He sung almost every battleship there is. Out of his 56 albums, 52 of them have went at least gold. He had 9 of them charting at the same time. Entertainer of the Year 5 times in a row. Nobody else has ever done that. 5 times in a row. And Alabama said that they were touring with him, and he probably should have had a couple of theirs. And can play every instrument to a high degree, from the harmonica to the fiddle to the banjo to the drums to the bass guitar to the saxophone to the piano. From Jerry Lee Lewis taught him how to play piano. I mean, yeah, I'm playing a steel guitar. I mean, yeah. So I mean, and he still tours. He was just singing last week.
Yeah,
76 years old. So. And he took the stage at the Grand Ole Opry at 8 years old. So, but
and whereas Elvis was rejected by the Opry, Hank Jr. essentially rejected the Opry in and of itself to find his own path.
Yeah. 2022 they put him in there.
Yeah.
Anyway,
better late than
much
never.
love, everybody. We'll probably put a different ending on this, Greg. So. Maybe I can put out with this ending. We'll record over this part.